Welcome to the Sarah Strat Show. This is a podcast about rebuilding, ambition, mindset, creativity, relationships, success, and figuring life out in real time. I'm your host and friend, Sarah Strat, and here we believe that you do not need to have everything perfectly figured out to start creating the life you want. So whether you're rebuilding, reinventing yourself, chasing after big dreams, or just trying to get unstuck, you are in the right place. I hope this podcast feels like a conversation with a friend as we all figure it out together. Now let's dive into today's episode. Ready or not? Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Sarah Strat Show. And if you're watching the YouTube video right now, Maximus just happened to walk on the screen at this perfect time. He is the sweetest little baby, Maximus Aurelius, the Lord of the North, the first of his name, the destroyer of worlds, and the biter of ankles. We named him all those extra names while I was live streaming. If you don't know that I'm a live streamer, you'll have to come and check that out sometime. We live stream on Twitch and YouTube. So, little fun fact, if you're just tuning in for the podcast and are unaware of all the other fun things that we get up to over here. Today, we are going to talk about how I get unstuck when I am struggling with ADHD, overwhelm, and actually finishing projects that I want to start. And if you can relate to that at all, please type something in the comments. Maybe say, me too, or list off a project that you're stuck on right now so that we can all come in there and help give you a tiny little nudge of encouragement that you can indeed finish that project, whether you are ready to start or not. Today and every day on the podcast, none of this is medical advice. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. And everything that I say is just things that has genuinely helped me or topics that I'm really interested in. So I've researched them and, used them in my own life. So these are just ways I can connect with you. And hopefully you will hear what I'm saying and understand some of it and be able to take some of that into relation in your own life and see what worked for me, and maybe it could work for you too. So welcome in, grab a coffee, crank up the volume while you're driving, and let's dig in. So pre me being diagnosed with ADHD, I struggled with this my whole life. My brother once joked to me that I was the jack of all trades and the master of none. And I thought that was quite funny because he meant that I always start so many projects that I'm incredibly passionate about all the projects. They're all the best ideas I've ever had. And some of them don't get finished. And by some of them, I mean like 87%. 87% of them just sit in the void of creative space and imagination that is Sarah Land. And I want to finish all of them, but we can't, right? Or can we? When I start a new project and I find myself being unable to commit to them and to finish them, I used to think that I was like really lazy, or that there was something wrong with me, that I was undisciplined. Or I would do what a lot of people might have thought was the right thing to do, is wait for motivation. Motivation is kind of a trap because you might be motivated at the very beginning of starting your project, but you're not going to feel motivated the entire way through the project, right? Motivation is kind of a lie. You create a ripple effect by actually working on something, and then you hit a hard wall where it really is just work and it's not fun anymore. And you have to keep going through that to create the motivation and the willpower to continue and finish and follow through on the project. And my whole life, I have always been this super creative, imaginative person who, can see myself doing all these different things, and I want to do them all. But sometimes I would get stuck in like this freeze loop, and I didn't know that there was a name for that until I was diagnosed with ADHD and I started to understand more what people who struggle with ADHD experience, which is essentially the dopamine loop of something new, new shiny thing, and then being able to put all of your attention into that, research into it, dive into it. You want to learn everything you possibly can about that entire subject and become the best at that one thing. Maybe it's knitting, I don't know, as an example. But then when you hit this kind of wall of it becoming, instead of this fun new dopamine thing, now it's a bit of a chore to do it. You might look over there and see, oh, something Chinese over there. Ah, I could maybe paint. I would love to be a painter. I've always wanted to be a painter. I think I will start painting. And that is your new shiny thing, right? So next thing you know, you've bought all of the supplies to become a painter, and you have all these paintbrushes and all these different paints and canvases, and now you need also an apron so that you can really look like a painter, and you've changed your aesthetic, and then you're like, oh, you know what, painting's actually really hard. I'm not that great at it. And now I am really interested in something else. And the cycle continues. So you might have a bunch of, unfinished hobbies or partially learned hobbies all over your house. And if you relate to this at all, please let me know. Bye, Maximus. Now, that being said, there are some things that we are just going to dive into that really are just hobbies. But what about something that's a passion project that you really want to finish? What about something that is a creative idea that you had that you know you would be really, really good at? For me, a great example is podcasting. A great example is content creation, right? I'm a natural entertainer. I love talking. I love researching. I love sharing knowledge with people. I love being on camera. And so for me, something that I've wanted to do since YouTube was created was have a YouTube channel, right? And unfortunately, back then, I didn't know that the reason I kept like limiting myself so much was because I would get frozen and unable to continue on with the project, because my brain would keep switching tasks essentially midway through, and almost like preventing myself from succeeding at the goal, because I wouldn't be able to fully complete it, if that makes sense. And I don't know if this is probably not just an ADHD thing. It probably happens to a lot of people who prevent themselves from achieving that final success because they kept working at the same endeavor over and over again, right? They kept at that one thing until it was successful. And I'm not saying that every project I've ever created hasn't come to fruition, because that's simply not true. I've written books, I've traveled the world, I've moved countries, I've moved continents, I've moved back home, I've had long lasting relationships, I've had, tons of highly successful times in my life. But there are lots of creative things that are projects of mine that I really wanted to take to the next level and wasn't able to do that. Or I would stop them. Case in point again, the podcast, because this is our third full attempt at creating the podcast. This time it's sticking though. Let me tell you right now. If you understand what I'm saying, and you've ever been there before, and you've had yourself start, stop, and freeze mode, and trying to figure out exactly how you can kind of get through that hump, then we're going to be diving into some of the things that are actively working for me that I'm applying into my life, and trying to learn and figure out which of these work best. And so maybe some of those will work for you too. Circling back to the master of none joke, I think that there's a lot of joke to that. I don't find that there's too much truth to it, because we need people who are good at multiple different things. But we also need to be able to focus and lock in on completing projects that we are really passionate about. And so something that's helped me is to assess what I am good at and what I'm great at and what I am not good at. Like, for example, one of the things that I wanted to do is make a video game. And I think that that would be fantastic. I would love to make a video game. Would I be good at making a video game? Absolutely not. I know nothing about any of that, right? So, starting to try to process out what are the things that you are good at versus what are some ideas that you have that would be really fun things to work on, but maybe you're not capable of accomplishing them, or you would need a team of people to work with to help build your idea. That's a whole different story for a whole nother podcast. But trying to work out, like, maybe make a list of all of the things that you currently are like, oh, being hard on yourself about, because maybe you have some guilt because you have a long list of projects that you want to finish. Like for me, off the top of my head, I want to finish writing one of my books that I've been working on, particularly one that I've been working on for over 10 years. And when I say working on, I mean I worked on it for like a year, and then I took like a 5-year break, and then I circled back to it, and then I started working on it again, and then I took another like 4-year break. So I haven't been actively working on it, but I would love to sit down and finish it. So that is one thing that I feel guilty about, because when I put it on my mental plate, I'm like, oh my God, there's another thing I'm failing at because I haven't done it yet, right? And then another thing on that list would be I want to make a video game. Okay, let's add that to the list. So we've got our book we want to finish, we've got the video game we want to make, we've got, I want to keep making podcast episodes every 2 weeks. And we want to keep streaming. Let's use those 4 things. All right. Now, out of those 4 things, what can we eliminate that probably isn't something that I would be able to actively do and pursue right now? Making a video game, because I have no skills that allow me to actually work on that. And sure, if I really wanted to and that was my passion, I could go to school and I could learn how to, become a developer. But we're not going to do that. We're going to focus instead on the couple or 1 or 2 projects that we can pick out that will allow us the time and space and energy and skill set that we have to be able to work on them because we are good at them. So for me, I'm great at entertaining, I'm great at talking to people, and I love being on camera. So what can we tie into that? The podcast and streaming, right? Those are 2 things that work together, that are creative projects of mine and passions of mine that I can work on. And if I want to work on writing, I can add that in there as well too, and put a smaller, less pressurized timeline on that. So instead of feeling this overwhelm and anxiety about all this huge laundry list of ideas and projects and creative things that you want to get done, you can start to eliminate things by maybe deciding that, put a pin in that for a year and focus on 1 or 2 things for this year. So we're halfway through 2026. What of the list of things that you've written down, maybe you have 10 things on that list. Maybe you want to learn to fly a plane. You want to become a professional ice skater. You want to finish writing your book. You want to make a board game. You want to finally start your podcast. We cannot do all of those things in the next 6 months. So what are 1 or 2 of those things that you can pick to focus on, and we can physically put a pin in the rest of them for the rest of the year? Because you will see great progress if you can put a pin in a bunch of other things and actually focus and lock in on 1 or 2 of those creative endeavors. Little ways that have helped my productivity when I'm working on a project, but I feel that sense of overwhelm coming, because if you can relate to this part too, how often have you been like, okay, I've got my list now. I know what I'm going to do. I am going to make a YouTube video, and I'm going to make 1 video a week for the rest of the year. And that is my focus. I'm going to do that. And then you put it in your diary, and the day comes up and you're like, okay, I can't do it. Something else has come up, or my focus is over here. And you start putting pressure on it, and you think of the big overarching timeline instead of just what you need to do for the next few hours. How often have you had that experience happen? Me, all the time. So how do I come up with a way that I can, finish this project? It's not how do I finish this project? That's too big of a question, right? What's the tiniest action that I can do to work towards achieving something that will help me complete that project, right? So it's not make a YouTube channel that's successful. It's not make 1 video a week, right? Maybe that's even too big. It's open Premiere. It's write down what I want to talk about, and it's push record and talk. There you go. It's way simpler. You don't have to think of the huge overarching final end game moment every single time that you're trying to work on a new project. You can just do 1 little step at a time, 1 tiny broken down task. You do not have to climb the whole mountain every time you want to finish something. You just have to take 1 tiny step towards that goal. And it doesn't even have to be every day. It doesn't even have to be every day that you're taking that 1 tiny step. It can be once a week that you've scheduled in 2 hours. 2 hours of an entire week of hours is not very much time at all. So if you can schedule in those 2 hours where you're taking 1 tiny step towards that goal, it's going to build up. It's going to build what we love, which is momentum. Momentum. Momentum is worth a heck of a lot more than motivation is, because momentum is where the magic happens. We don't always feel motivated every day. Do you feel motivated every day? Maybe you go to work because you have to. You know what I mean? We have to go do those things. Do we feel motivated to go? No. Do we have to go? Yes, we have to go. Of course we do, right? Do I have to go have a shower? No, I don't. But am I going to? Yes. It's things like that. You don't have to feel motivated all the time, but momentum is where the magic happens, because momentum continues to build up, and it builds up and it builds up, and the next thing you know, you have a beautiful project that is flourishing because you kept that momentum going. You kept the consistency going and the momentum going, and it created something valuable. It created something magical. Why don't we make the goals ridiculously easy, right? Why don't we write one sentence? Why don't we edit for 10 minutes? Why don't we go to the gym for a 1 kilometer walk? You don't have to go to the gym for 2 hours every single day to start having momentum. You just have to get out of your house and go to the gym, because you're starting to create that tiny habit loop. And the reward is feeling that accomplishment, feeling the routine start to be built. You can just send one email. You can do one load of laundry. And the trick here is, because you're creating momentum, the likelihood that you go to the gym and you really only walk 1 kilometer is pretty high that it's going to be more than that. You're going to probably end up walking 5 kilometers because you've already gone all the way to the gym. You're probably going to write more than one sentence when you sit down at the computer to work on your book, because you've made the effort to sit down at the computer, right? You're going to start creating momentum by showing up for yourself to complete that task, to sit down and work on that project. Another great thing that helps me when I'm feeling overwhelmed with all these different creative ideas that I have and stuff I want to get finished, and new creative ideas pop up all the time. If you're a creative person, if you know, you know. If you know, you know. I have a new book idea every 2 weeks, and I'm like, that's a really good idea. I can't write 500 books a year. Like, nobody can. It's not possible. So something that helps me when my brain gets into that overwhelm is to keep a notebook where I write down all of these ideas. I have to-do lists. I write down, creative ideas that pop up, and I keep that all in one place that's contained. So I can go back there and reference things easily, and it frees up mental space, because I'm not trying to remember all of these little tasks or ideas or creative plots or something like that. I have this storage where it's kept in one place, and it also helps to brain dump it into the notebook, so that I know that all of my creative ideas aren't going to waste. They're not just being released out into the universe and somebody else is picking up. I'm putting them in there to work on later, and it frees up mental space for me, so I don't have this overwhelming anxiety. And that's helped me a lot. It's the same thing with journaling. Journaling is a wonderful thing. I have probably like 50 journals on the bookshelf behind me over the years of keeping track of my ideas or what's going on in my life or working through difficult emotions and things like that. Journaling is a great way to do that. Another huge thing that helps me when I get stuck in a freeze loop is to start separating the planning from the doing, from the execution, right? Because do you know how easy it is to get stuck in planning mode? You can overthink a task to death and you will get nothing done. Absolutely nothing will get done. You can plan it, you can organize it, you can get day planners and plan it all out in the day. If you don't actually show up for yourself and sit down at the computer and do the task, it doesn't matter how efficiently you planned out your week. It is going to fail. It is going to fail. You can have Google calendars filled up with all your time slots or color coordinated. It doesn't matter. If you don't actually show up, that routine is never going to get created. So you have to show up for yourself. So if you can organize when you're going to sit down at the computer, that's great. Now you actually have to just sit down and execute that. Separate planning from doing. Allow yourself the space to have a planning session where you sit down and you organize maybe what your week looks like, right? When you're going to do what. Are you going to work on Monday for 2 hours at 9 a.m. on, learning how to be a pilot? Okay, great. You've planned that out. Now, when you get to Monday, we're not going to sit there and start planning out what those 2 hours are going to look like. You need to execute the plan. You need to sit down and you need to execute that plan. Stop yourself from redesigning the plan halfway through. And you will thank me for that, because it's so easy to get stuck in a thought loop where you just want everything to be perfect, but we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And our plans can't be perfect. And even as we execute the plans to work towards accomplishing some sort of task, it's not going to be perfect either. And the results aren't going to be perfect. And you cannot be hard on yourself for that, because progress beats perfection every single time. Progressing towards that goal is going to give you true dopamine that lasts forever, because you're accomplishing something that feels so incredible. But the perfectionist inside me has stopped me so many times from even going out there and trying to achieve the goal, because I'm like, oh, if it's not perfect, if I don't have the perfect schedule, then I won't be able to get it done. It's not going to turn out the way I want it to. So that need for the perfect plan can stop you more than your talent ever will. Because you could be so talented, but if you allow yourself to get hung up on the perfect time or the perfect plan or it's got to look like this and it's got to be like this, and you don't execute anything, even if it's messy, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Done checking it off, better than perfect, right? You've started something. And so finishing that something is the end goal. And this is especially true for people that want to create content of any kind. If it's writing, if it's vlogging, if it's YouTube videos, if it's acting, if it's creating any kind of thing, you cannot get better at it if you have not put yourself out there and tried and failed and see what works, and then continue to work on things and put that out there. You cannot improve upon ideas that you didn't finish, right? Because it just remains an idea. You can't go back and watch your idea play out if you didn't record it, if you didn't upload it, if you didn't see if anybody enjoyed it, right? If you didn't write it and send it out to beta readers, how are you going to know if it's any good or not? How can you improve with no feedback? How can you create better content that more people want to watch if you don't ever push record in the first place? If you don't ever hit upload? If you're too scared and frozen, waiting for it to be perfect, you'll wait forever. You'll wait forever. I've done it. I have done it. I created the YouTube channel in like 2011 or something. And then I uploaded 2 things, and then I didn't upload anything for, I don't know, 7 years. I've been there. I've done it. I know what I'm saying. You've got to just go. You have to just keep going after you push record, after you push upload. You need to be able to get that feedback and see what you can fix and improve your projects by creating them and putting them out there for the world to see. You can't get better if you don't try. And so if there's something that you've really been wanting to try, I hope that you can take this as your go ahead, as your permission to start. I really do hope you can, because you have permission to start. And if you've struggled with things like this your whole life, like me, like yours truly, who absolutely has, you are not broken. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not undisciplined. You just need to find a way that works for you to understand that execution is better than constant planning loop and freezing and sitting there and being stuck in the unknown and then distracting yourself with other things and not finishing what you know you would be so good at. Because the world needs your creation. The world needs more of you. The world needs your great idea. The world needs to read those beautiful words that you wrote. They need it, but they can't read it if you don't write it. And even if one tiny tip or advice from this podcast helps you in any way, then it was worth making. It was worth recording for me, because it helped you in some small way. And all I did was sit down, even though I felt overwhelmed, even though I wanted things to be perfect, even though I had other stuff going on in my life. And I sat down and I hit record. And here we are. We've just finished our 5th podcast episode. And just like that, we did it. and we're going to edit it and we're going to put it out there and we'll see what you think of it, right? And then our next podcast episode will be even better because we kept creating, we kept showing up for ourselves. And I kept showing up for you. I love you. Have an amazing day today, and I will see you on the next episode. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much for listening to the Sarah Strat Show. If today's episode resonated with you in any way, I'd really appreciate if you took a moment to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with someone who might need to hear it too. It genuinely helps support the show and allows our community to grow. You can also find more information, updates, and resources at sarahstrat.com, and join me across all social platforms at Sarah Strat to continue the conversation and follow the journey. And if you're also rebuilding, reinventing yourself, healing, chasing a big dream, or just trying to figure life out one step at a time, I hope this podcast reminds you that you're not alone in that. Thank you for being here, and thank you for spending this time with me. I'll see you in the next episode of the Sarah Strat Show. Until then, keep going, keep growing, and remember, you do not need to have everything figured out to begin. You can start whether you're ready or not.